At a small concert full of Discord mods, a man filming is asked who he's recording. He replies that he's filming Kid, the energy-filled youngest member of the girl group. He accidentally makes a pun that he's a pedophile and gets taken by the police and is cancelled online. Several years later, his mum leaves him food and leaves for work, and we see Jingyung, the boy from earlier, appear from his man cave. He takes the food to his room to continue watching some furry shit and begins to talk to himself. He's in weeb denial. After being harassed constantly online, he's developed social anxiety disorder and hasn't been leaving his house at all. A mosquito buzzes by his ear and he gets up, talking to his 2D girlfriend, and chants a spell as he sprays his insect repellent. All of a sudden, a large explosion suddenly echoes through his room and he is abruptly zapped into the sky. Moments later, the laser beams him down onto a patch of grass as a girl runs towards him, excited to have succeeded her first summoning. She asks him what his name is, and Jingyung, confused, replies that his name is Neat. The girl then asks him to defeat a monster for her, to which he turns around to see a floating version of Siren Head. It's actually the mosquito from earlier. Despite his disbelief, he starts singing Despacito and sprays his mosquito repellent like it's a wand. Naturally, nothing happens and the girl stares at horror at what kind of monster she's unleashed on her world. Seconds later, however, a burst of light appears and the ground trembles as the mosquito explodes into a ball of flames. And Neat has accidentally unleashed a nuclear winter on this new world. The girl is astonished as she has never seen magic on this scale before and thinks that she has somehow summoned a hero of the past and asks if he's a wizard, which she misunderstands for the other kind. She introduces herself as Minor and asks if she may summon him again, to which Jingyung replies that maybe she might. She cancels the summoning and finishes the spell with the same nonsensical words that Neat has said earlier before being summoned, Napajni Adam. A beam lights up into the sky and Jingyung wakes up, finding himself crashed out on his bed. He thinks it's just been a great dream and goes back to sleep, only to wake up later and find leaves on the bottom of his foot. Bro, how did you not notice that earlier? If you've ever had tissue stuck to the bottom of your bare foot, you know how uncomfortable that shit. Outside in the living room, his mother asks if he's hungry to no reply, and his dad leaves the house, exasperated at the shut-in. As Jingyung gets up to shut down his computer, he once again gets teleported to the other world, 9,000 feet in the air. Meanwhile, Minor meets up with several of her companions, Jake and Elera. They are surprised that Minor has been able to meet up with them so quickly since there had been a giant mosquito monster blocking that path. As she had always been last in her summoning class, she decides that she can't be asked to explain and says that the mosquito fucked off to another planet, which the other happen to believe. They hear jingling in the distance. The Watch of the Dead. Jake tells the two to settle down and tells them a story. TLDR, there are mythical masters of mountains who punish people that destroy nature by branding them, upon which the dead hunt them down forever. In other words, that someone has earned the wrath of the master of this mountain, who happens to be your average landlord in Brooklyn. Minor asks Jake, for a friend of course, what would theoretically happen if a summoner's summon destroyed half the mountain and created a nuclear fallout, to which he replies that the dead would then pursue the summoner instead. When she tells him the truth about what's happened, the other two laugh at the absurdity, fair enough. However, their jesting quickly falls into silence as a silhouette of Bigfoot appears from the trees towering over them. As it approaches them, they realise something is wrong and Elera summons a djinn, which manages to foam out the SCP into submission. Naturally, they look over and see a few dozen more of these gigantic monsters approaching them, and the three-pillar team rocket.
Run.
Minor, the idiot she is, gets separated from her friends and falls over, only to be faced off by the monsters once more. She fails to run away and is branded by the monsters. In desperation, she tries to summon her Neat once again, but thinks that she has failed. Seconds before a beam blasts into the sky and Jingyung appears, looking as awkward as ever. Minor asks for help, but Jingyung realises that he has been summoned without his mosquito repellent. Minor explains that she has been branded and is being dragged off as the monsters act out their Confederate cosplay, and Jingyung spits on her forehead, which magically removes the curse. The enraged monsters begin to attack Jingyung, who spits on them to deal poison damage, upon which the monsters run away, scared of contracting COVID-19. However, the ground begins to shake as the master of the mountain appears and throws shit at Neat and Minor. Jingyung shakes off the 20-ton boulder like it's nothing and gets up spouting more bad one-liners than a Marvel character. He starts casting his nonsensical spells, and never have I ever related so much to a fictional character. Once again, there's a short pause before a beam of light pierces the mountain monster and electrocutes it into KFC. Baffled, Minor bursts into praise and thanks Neat once again, and asks him what favour he would like of her. Neat didn't have anything on his mind, so he tells her that he'll tell her soon, TM. Excited at being told that he'll listen to a summons once more, Minor happily gifts him an ether, which connects the summoner and the summoned, before reversing the summoning. Jingyung finds himself back on his bed and is exhilarated to realise that the fantasy world is not just a dream. In the past, Jingyung had watched Kid talk about the struggles she had had after the incident caused by him, and was infuriated, thinking that she should have known that it was a joke and should have protected him instead. Because of the incident, the idol's career took off in popularity, while hate comments and harassment increased towards Jingyung. In the present, the NEET watches a weeb idol show as he latches onto one of the new idols as his icon of purity and perfection. Obsessed, he even goes online to buy a figurine of her after reading this review. A while later, the doorbell rings and NEET asks the delivery guy to leave it at the door. After hyping himself up, he manages to open the front door and bursts into the corridor. Back in his room, he worships the figurine. Yeah. A few days later, another delivery arrives and Jingyung decides to try accept a package that he would normally ignore. However, just as he is about to open the front door, he sees his neighbours exit their house as they talk about the weird guy that they saw the other day who had been screaming about barriers and stuff. Jingyung has a panic attack and faints from hyperventilating. Meanwhile, Minor meets back up with the companions and arrives at Illyria's uncle's house. She greets him and is welcomed to the house and is coerced into working as a maid. Impressed at her working speed, she is then told to farm, in what looks like Wales. Yep, good luck. Seeing birds peck at her feet, Minor attempts to summon a djinn and instead ends up with a matchstick, and instead decides to beat them up using a hoe. A few hours later, however, the birds return with their mum. Back on Earth, Jingyung sees his gemstone glow and gets summoned like a Pokemon. This time, fully prepared, he appears in the sky doing more yoga poses, and Minor immediately regrets her decision of summoning him. He starts chanting a new spell and makes some more KFC. NEET decides to gloat, upon which the daddy bird appears along with his 400 pub friends. As his lighter has run out of fluid, however, he rummages through his bag to find insect-repelling incense and uses his ultimate ability, Regional KFC Manager, and burns all chickens in a radius into ash. Afterwards, when NEET asks Minor why she's farming, even though she's a summoner, she asks him if it's stupid to keep trying at something you're bad at. Not realising that Minor is talking about herself, NEET tells her that doing so would be foolish, to which she quietly tears up, agreeing. This fucking creep then asks Minor to put on his figurine's costume. Hesitant, she quietly undoes the summon when his eyes are closed. No wonder he's a NEET. Jingyung watches his favourite idol show, which shows two of the girls talk about giving up and imposter syndrome, and one of the girls consoles the other, telling her to not give up so easily. NEET watches the scene and realises that the summoning really was Minor's one and only dream, and that he had given rather disheartening advice, and promptly draws the wrong conclusion, absolute troglodyte. Meanwhile, Minor heads outside to burn the micro bikini but witnesses a bolt of fire in the distance. She meets the wizard, who shows her various pretty bits of magic and explains to her why he's visiting the Earl, because the man of the world has slowly been disappearing. Suddenly, Twitter appears from the skies and explodes the Earl's house. The wizard recognises the bird as Gria's guide, the omen of an approaching demon. Just on cue, a tremendous beast appears from a rift in the sky and begins to scorch the earth. As the group run, the beast spots Minor and blasts her with hellfire, but Minor opens her eyes and sees the micro bikini soaking the blast of the demon. I think she might have just preferred to die there, I'm not gonna lie. Her companions rush over to ask how she survived and are shocked to learn that she was not lying about having summoned a powerful hero. Illyria chats shit to Minor and drives her to the point of tears, upon which Jingyung wakes up and tells her off for saying that she is useless and to never bow her head again. He chugs a bottle of kidney stones before leaping into the air, dodging the demon's air-to-air combat missiles and promptly smashing into the demon's eye and disintegrating it into dust. The wizard, who had been looking for a powerful summoner to save the world from its disappearing mana, immediately bows down to Minor, requesting her to aid him in his quest to save the North. Despite her concerns, Minor, inspired by Jingyung's heartfelt comments, decides to accept the invitation. 2 days later, NEET is woken up by Minor, who is relieved to find out that he is in okay condition. Before she undoes the summoning spell, however, Jingyung asks if he can have a look outside and is shown a tremendous view, as they are in the middle of the sky flying on an airship. They arrive at a castle in the sky and the wizard guides them to the king. So that's chapters 1 through 21 of her summon. Overall, I'm very impressed by the depth of the story. It manages to simultaneously have a comedic, satirical edge towards NEET summon into another world where they're suddenly super strong trope, as well as a deeper commentary concerning the effects of witch hunting, social anxiety, and related mental disorders, as well as the dangers of shut-in lifestyles. While the main character is so incredibly creepy, antisocial, and downright disgusting at points, The manhwa does a great job at making you feel empathy for Jin-young, showing his story as he gradually changes. The art is objectively some of the best I've seen in a manhwa, but I'm definitely not a big fan of the way the artist often portrays female characters, which feels quite creepy at times. S- tier. If you want to read it, links are in the description.